Tata Computer Systems was a company founded in 1968 when computers were more of an intellectual curiosity than a serious business tool. Today, renamed as Tata Consultancy Services or TCS, it's India's biggest IT company and one of the world's largest IT services providers. Now, TCS is a subsidiary of the mega conglomerate Tata Sons, which was founded 100 years before TCS. And philanthropy and the principles that we now call stakeholder responsibility were embedded into Tata's operational structure right from those earliest days. Now, those were a time when India was still being colonized by the British, and workers in the new industrial revolution had almost no rights at all. The Tata founder, Jamsetji Tata, led the way in championing the health and welfare of his employees and of the communities in which they operated. Now, today, at a time when so many companies are beginning to consider, or being forced to consider, adopting stronger standards around environmental and social governance, it's very encouraging to find companies like Tata who have recognized the business value of this approach all along. So to find out more about how those founding philanthropic philosophies have translated into 21st century practice, I spoke to Girish Ramachandran, who's president for Asia Pacific at Tata Consultancy Services. Girish, thank you very much indeed for joining me today.
Pleasure being here. Thank you.
Girish, the company philosophy, the company history is shot through with talk about issues of social importance. It's the very fabric of the group is interwoven with a lot of philosophy from the founder about how he felt about the company's role in relation to stakeholders, what we would now call stakeholders, but back then they weren't really known as stakeholders so much, were they? It seems that a lot of the company's philosophy came from a humanist perspective and a social perspective that was really part of its time, those colonial days when labor and management issues and ruling issues were very high on the agenda. So while the company still displays a lot of this humanist philosophy, let's try and bring it up to date a little bit in terms of the language that we're using and the priorities, because I know that sustainability and ESG are the words that we use now. Can you just put it into modern terms? What is the Tata Group philosophy when it comes to these considerations?
Yeah. So Temur, the group always felt that we need to put society at the center of development for everything. Okay? So the society was the most fundamental reason for the Tata Group's existence. And that has been the guiding philosophy of the group right from the days of the last 151 years. Okay? So when we look at what the group has been able to do, the group has lived through this particular philosophy. And whichever country that we are in, we put the society at the center of our development and then put all other stakeholders, including customers, employees, and shareholders. So this has been the fundamental thing. The group has been successful for the last 150 years. And if you look at many organizations, many large capitalistic organizations in the world, they've always felt that initially make profits and then give back to the society. Whereas the Tata Group's philosophy has been slightly different. The group's philosophy has always been that we need to exist for the society. So whatever are the profits that we need to make, that we make, has to go back to the society at large. So it is.
I'm just quoting here from one of the guiding principles of the company, which are written down in some of the coverage. No success or achievement in material terms is worthwhile unless it serves the needs or interests of the country and its people, and is achieved by fair and honest means, which again sounds, philosophically a fantastic guiding principle. Business-wise, this is still something that you live by.
Absolutely. And the group has also put some fundamental governance and organization structure to ensure that we adhere to it. So the parent company, which is Tata Sons, is held 66% by philanthropic trusts. And each and every company is listed separately in the stock market. So all of us have a profit motive. We need to exist on our own legs. but whatever we make in profits goes back to the parent company. And the parent company is held, since it is held 66% by philanthropic trust, the group ensures that the money is flowed back into the society. So that has been the fundamental philosophy of the group.
It's a wonderful thing to conceive of, and really, as somebody who spent an awful lot of time talking to business leaders, it's a conversation that I've almost never had. Is about a company that founds itself on principles like this. Do you find this to be anachronistic in the modern day of business, where profit and quarterly results are really the guiding motives, and shareholder return are what people focus on?
As much as we see companies, if you look at, let's take a step back, and if you look at companies who have survived over 150 years plus, okay, in the history of time, then what you would see is that companies who have had only a profit-centric approach have never survived. Companies who have survived have always been purpose-led. And so, I mean, there are many organizations like the Tata Group who has always felt purpose is more important than profit. And those are the companies that have survived. So I see that, again, post-COVID, we see that more and more organizations will pivot towards this particular principle.
I was reading some of the comments from Chairman Ratan Tata when he took office in the early 90s. And he specifically actually said at the time, from what I'm reading, that he needed to turn the company around to be a little bit more shareholder focused. So that tension does exist even in that context. How do you think that in the modern day, the general business environment regards that conflict at the moment? Do you think things are coming around more to the Tata Group way of thinking of things and the ESG way of thinking of things now? Do you think the market is now following you?
I believe that we are more and more pivoting towards that. Organizations are who are successful and who have stayed through the history are ones which has pivoted towards purpose. And I genuinely believe that this has been a good reset. COVID has been a good reset, and organizations and enterprises will look at this more holistically to see what an impact they can do for the society at large.
Tata is an enormous organization. I mean, the number of elements that go into making Tata Sons is really extraordinarily varied. How easy is it to control and to promulgate that philosophy through the entire company, especially now when so much of ESG is focused not only upon things like philosophy and the individual company, but making sure that everybody in the supply chain, everybody in the group adheres to the same principles? The management of that process must be extraordinarily difficult. And you, as TCS, one arm of that organization, to what extent do you think that your activities are driven by the ownership of TCS and the management of TCS, or how much of that actually comes from the parent?
Yeah. So, Temur, all the employees, 750,000 people of the Tata Group, adhere to what is called the Tata Code of Conduct. And the Tata Code of Conduct has 3 principles along with it. One is essentially on good governance. The second one is on citizenship. And the third one is what can we do for the community at large. So this is the underlying principle of all the employees who have joined the Tata Group. Okay. And TCS, as the largest employer within the group, we are around 450,000 plus people. And we embody this very much into our CSR policy, and we call our CSR policy what we call impact through empowerment. Okay, and we take this across to multi-stakeholders within our own business, and then look at what can we do to make an impact through with our employees, with our community, with our customer, as well as the larger ecosystem as well.
How do you differentiate, if you like, or how do you engage with the different jargon that is so much around these things? What is CSR? What is ESG? And how do they fit in with the corporate philosophy?
Again, some of this has gained a lot of prominence only of late, but the Tata Group philosophy has been guiding us for the last 150 years. Okay? So the whole principle about community development, putting community at the center of our business, and if you look at any of the new jargons which has come in, are essentially looking at the same thing, which is how do you be purpose-led? how do you look at beyond short-term returns? How do you look at creating a futuristic organization which not only look at long-term value creation, but also look at the for employees, what is good for employees, what is good for consumers, and what is good for your own ecosystem as well. So this has been the one which has embodied the group as well. So I think we have all of us live through this, Timur, on a daily basis as far as TCS or the Tata Group is concerned.
So you're talking now about the company philosophy and the company guiding principles. What about the practicalities of making sure those principles are adhered to? Tell me how. Let's talk about TCS in particular, because that's the group of which you're in charge. But so how do you ensure that the company follows these things? What is the management structure that allows for those principles to be activated in real time?
Yeah. So we again believe that we have to empower communities in whichever country that we are living in. Okay. And when you talk about community development in each and every countries, each of our country heads are purposed to ensure that they do what is good for that particular community. So somebody in Taiwan has to look at what is good for Taiwanese. Okay. Somebody in China has to look at what is good for China. So that has been the predominant philosophy in which the group brings this particular thing alive. Okay.
But how do you define good? I mean, do you have KPIs? Do you have measurable impacts around that concept of good?
Yeah. So none of us put together a hard target for this, but since this pretty much part of the DNA of the organization, we look at three things when we are looking at monitoring of any of these programs. Okay, we call it ROI, which is reach, outcome, as well as impact. So we look at each of them and see how many beneficiaries are we looking at. So I'll give you a simple example. Okay, when I was before I took up this particular job, there was two interesting programs that we ran in TCS. One is called Fit for Life, another one is called Purpose for Life. Okay. Now, as you know, TCS is a very young organization. The average age in the company is 29. Okay. And we are 450,000 people. Okay. So it's fairly large size. Okay. And one of the problems, Taimur, all of us realize is that when we are sitting in front of computers for hours together, by the time you are in your mid 30s, people tend to get all the lifestyle diseases. Okay. So we decided that there is, as the largest organization in the Tata Group and the largest IT company in India, we need to find a way to mitigate this and find a way to solve this particular issue. So we found a very interesting solution, which is called Fit for Life. Okay. Fit for Life has three interesting things. One is each of us take care of, we pledge for our own health at the beginning of the year. Two, we say that I can't do it myself. If I have to join the program, I need to develop a community around me. And the third one, most important thing is whatever you are doing, we say that we will give back whatever you achieve in something back into charity as well. Now, by doing this, we have had a very successful programs. Today, we have almost 250,000 plus employees or associates enrolled in the program, and this is the largest corporate program on health. And we have been able to see results, not only in terms of our insurance claims and all that, but we've been able to see the morale of employees going up significantly.
So you can actually, if not scientifically, you are measuring benefit from having that sort of focus.
Absolutely. So we have now moved that needle a little bit. Other than fitness, we have now moved it to purpose as well. So we call it Purpose for Life. I started off this program when I was in corporate, and Purpose for Life is all about volunteering. And last year, the 100,000 plus people who are in TCS volunteered over 600,000 hours, which is by far one of the largest corporate giving programs in the world. Okay. So we measure all of this and look at what are the number of beneficiaries that we touch. And TCS today, last year, for example, we spent over $75 million plus on CSR activities, and we were able to touch around 1.6 million beneficiaries.
Beneficiaries being
the end set of people who who, for example, if it is health, then it's employees' health. Okay?
So
But for example,
sorry,
if you're talking,
I'm just trying to, because you were talking initially about mostly the internally focused employee benefits program. So is this purpose program again around employees, or are you also considering consumers at this point as well?
no, we do significant work also in the community. If I had, I'll give you one example of an interesting program. In India, the biggest problem that we have is that, as you know, we have 1.3 billion people, and a lot of people have got cancer. Okay, and as soon as somebody, and cancer can happen to anybody, even in villages, and the two largest hospitals in South Asia for cancer research happens to be funded completely by the Tatas, and it's called the Tata Memorial Hospital in Mumbai as well as in Calcutta. Now, if anybody in India gets an issue in terms of cancer, almost everybody would drop everything off, take the next train, and come to the Tata Memorial Hospital. And so we would have huge lines of queue for actually seeing a patient. Okay. Now, as the largest technology company, we said that is there a way we can digitize this whole thing and create a frictionless experience for customers? So we created a very interesting program called DINC, which is called the Digital Nerve Center. Today, it's a very highly successful program, again, very lauded by the UN and a lot of other organizations. We have created a health spine for cancer care across India, and out of the 100 plus million people who use this particular the digital spine, today they just call up. If I hear that I have cancer, for example, I just have to call a toll-free number, and then immediately a doctor will come online. The doctor is employed by TCS. The doctor comes online, and the doctor says that please go and do these tests near your village. And by the time they do this particular test, we get the digital report, and then we are able to tell the patient that this particular thing, you don't need to come to all the way to the Tata Memorial Hospital. You can go to your closest hospital, and on this particular day, let's say at Tuesday at 11 a.m., if you go there, this particular doctor will see you. So we have tried to ensure that we have put together a very seamless customer experience for cancer care in India.
It's a great example of the marriage of technology and social impact. And I guess fascinating for a company like you, where TCS is very much engaged in that in the infrastructure of technology and how it fits into business and daily life. Tell me a little bit more about how you see this trajectory going. It's is technology really going to become the underpinning of all the ways that we create impact and all the ways that we benefit the stakeholders?
I believe so. I believe for any successful transformation, whether it's in the health space, whether it's the education space, it is very important that three sets of people come together, which is government, which is enterprises, and digital citizens, okay, or DGCs. Okay. And it is the government's responsibility, I believe, to create a digital spine for the country so that enterprises and digital citizens can actually use them. Okay. And when I call a digital spine, this is essentially a model by which organizations are able to use the digital spine, or whether it's the health spine, or we can call it education spine, or whatever it is, to ensure that they are hugely able to provide the impact. Okay. And I believe that we have four important things which are needed. I call them the 4 C's, which is connectivity, collaboration, cloud, and more importantly, cyber. If you are able to provide your customer data to be secure, and you're able to provide it on the cloud, then the advantage for a citizen is that he or she is able to move around countries or move around the country or countries without having to worry about whether my data is safe. Okay. And this is what I think will probably help transform every country as we go along.
The reason I asked the question was because there is a sense amongst a lot of people that we're putting maybe too much faith on technology, on digital instruments, and regarding them as the silver bullet that will solve all our problems, whereas in fact A lot of the problems that we have relate to the natural world and the environment around us, and what we need to do to make sure that that survives, because so we depend upon that so much. And again, just referring to the company history, I was looking. JRD Tata wrote in 1992, which was incredibly forward thinking. Our industrial enterprises should now extend beyond serving people to the environment. And so I just wanted to bring the conversation around to the idea of, okay, what is TCS and what is Tata in general doing about environmental concerns? Do you think that your focus should still be on technology, or are there broader issues of, I don't know, carbon capture and energy efficiency that you take into account in your CSR activity?
So we decided that as TCS, we decided that we need to eat our own food first. Okay? So we decide, and we have fairly large campuses, Taimur, across India and the world. Okay? And each our campuses are anywhere between 5,000 associates to almost 30,000 associates. Okay? So we decided that is there a way by which using technology we are able to bring down our energy consumption? Okay? So we put very simple technology today, and the technology has done wonders for us. So what we did was we put sensors across all our campuses, and we put together a center from where we can monitor all the consumption across the world. Okay? And what it does is that it looks at heat maps. So, for example, in a particular part of the campus, if there are more number of people, then we are able to lower the energy, the temperature in that particular place. Whereas if in another place we don't see any associates at all, we don't need to necessarily keep the air conditioning on. Okay, this has yielded very successful results for us. So what we've done is that in the last 3 years, if I may quote, every year we have had our employee growth by almost 10%. But by still doing that, we've been able to reduce our energy bills by almost 10%. So it's a fairly large part of our energy ecosystem that we have been able to do with. Okay? And today we are actually selling this energy management system to other companies as well. Okay? So what we have done, Taimur, within TCS is that we have reduced our carbon intensity by almost 50%. We had put a target of 50% reduction, and we are already there. And our scope one is only very little. We don't do too much within. We are not a large carbon emitting organization per se. It is in the scope 2 emissions which are significant. And now we are trying to see what can we do on the ecosystem, which is working with renewables, working with our entire supplier base, all of that, and seeing how we can ensure that we bring in more visibility in the supply chain.
What do you think, out of all the activities that you do at TCS, has the greatest impact for the environmental aspect of what you do, and how that contributes to the global goals under the SDGs?
Right. Okay. So let me take it and look at it across 4 pillars that we look at from a sustainability point of view. Okay. The first and foremost is that we need to see how do we work with our future employees of TCS. So we create a whole lot of programs in that particular area about how do we start ensuring that we bring in the concept of sustainability to the students. Okay. So, for example, in Singapore, we launched a very interesting program called Sustainathon. It's a hackathon on sustainability, and we pick topics which are very topical for that particular country. Okay. So in Singapore, we picked the whole thing about food waste and can students find an opportunity to reduce food waste. Okay. We had some very good success in this particular program, and we had over 190 students who participated in this program. And now we are taking Sustainathon across the world, right into Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, and as well as in Europe, Americas, as well as in South Africa. So that is the first part of the thing. Okay. Then in terms of employees, we believe, again, health and wellness for our employees is what is most critical. And that is why we launched the whole program about fitness and purpose. And we are now extending it also to sustainability. We are doing a pilot on a very interesting program to see whether all of us, because we are fairly large, 450,000 employees, and if you look at the larger community, we are almost 2 million people. Okay, if you take all our families. Okay, and we are seeing, is there a way by which we can measure our individual carbon footprint? Okay, so this is a very interesting study that we are doing. We are actually building a digital tool by which we can capture our individual carbon footprint and how can we reduce our carbon footprint. Okay, this is something on the works. It will be launched in the next few weeks. Okay. The third one is what can we do with our own internals within TCS, and that is what I talked about. Energy management. We have put some very audacious goals as far as what we can do. And the fourth one is what can we do with the community at large. Okay, so when we talk about community, we are talking about our customers. So we are partnering with customers to see whether is there a way by which we can make a huge impact in the respective countries. For example, with Petronas in Malaysia, we've created what is called Seed Ventures. Okay, it's a very interesting concept which is modeled very similar to a program that we ran in the west of India called DISC, okay, which is called the Digital Impact Square. And using digitization, can technology solve problems of the society at large? So we brought this to Malaysia, and now we are taking it to other markets as well. Okay, and again, we also sit on technology on sustainability bodies to see how can we influence them. For example, I'm at the board of GRI, and we are trying to see how sustainability reporting can remain mainstay, and can we learn not just from our industry, but can we learn from other companies who are not from my industry but who are best in class. So this is something using data and data-driven models. We are trying to create a new ecosystem on sustainability.
Fantastic.
So there is a whole lot of focus on each of these dimensions.
So let me finish with a question about problems. What are the biggest obstacles, do you think, to achieving the goals and the philosophies that you have set yourselves as a company, and the goals and the problems, obstacles towards the broader business community in joining you in this kind of activity and helping to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals?
We only have another 10 more years, Taimur, to attain the SDGs. And if you look at the progress that has been made, although you would say that, yes, there has been progress, but in a lot of SDG parameters, we still haven't made the cut that ideally organizations should have. Okay. So I want all the enterprises to think of this crisis as an opportunity to reboot with sustainability at the center of everything. And when you look at sustainability and having two other pillars, which is innovation and technology, if you are able to build innovation, technology, and sustainability, then I believe that we can move a lot forward in the area of sustainability and economics. So I'm still optimistic, but we still haven't made progress. Okay? And in Asia, especially, I think there are countries which needs to make significant progress towards this.
Girish, best of luck with all those efforts, and thanks very much again for talking to me today.
Thank you, Taimur.